it hurts you, because the times that you have for the use of these molecules is very, very short. In the case of RNA, which is the primary hypothesis on how life might have started, you have no time. You have no time. You only have hours in order to use this. Hours. That's a big, big problem.
How do people respond to that? Like, what would someone that you're butting up against say in response to that?
You know what they say? Nothing. Nothing. They have no response to that. You know, you'll hear people, recently I heard a talk by Jack Sostek in, I think it was 2020, 2021, something. He did a talk at the University of Chicago, and it was a virtual talk during the COVID period. And one of the geologists said, you know, we really don't have to have catalysis or anything because we have so much time. And Jack, who's an expert, and he's a Nobel Prize winner, and he's an expert in RNA, he said, actually, we don't have much time. You have to have chemistry that's faster than the degradative chemistry. And so you really don't have much time. But he didn't park there and show and talk about the extent of how little time you have. You have on the order of hours. If you make a compound, if I make a compound in my laboratory and I have only a few hours to get it on to the next step, I am working very, very hard to try to cool that down, to try to stabilize it, to try to get it on in the next step. Hours is a very short amount of time. Now you think on a mindless earlier. So this whole argument of time is absolutely right. It is time of the gaps. They will insert time in their gaps and say time took care of this. And my argument is no, time doesn't take care of this. Time actually hurts you. So you want to claim this thing of time, it hurts you. So yeah, that's what we're talking about with that. And then the sugars are the hardest class of compounds. You think, oh, sugars are easy. Sugars are the hardest class because sugars have all these different tentacles, and it can hook up to any one of these points. And if it hooks up to the wrong point, that's the wrong attachment point. And every disorder, every biological disorder can be traced back to also a disorder within the carbohydrates. So it's really fundamental to get that coupling right. Nobody knows how to do that. Nobody knows. There's people that throw out this idea, well, it's not RNA first, it's metabolism first. All right, you have metabolism, so you get a bunch of little molecules. Now what happens? You just say, now what happens? So Brandon, what they do is they don't confront to address me on this. They just don't answer. People say, well, why don't you publish papers saying that? Well, absolutely I have. I have published 5 papers in the field. They ignore them. Clemens Reichert, they ignored him. He says you can't have all this human interaction. He published this paper, I think it was 2018, Nature Communications. So they just keep ignoring all of these signs when people throw up roadblocks. And I'm not the first one to point out these problems, not at all. People have been writing books about this since the 1980s. Shapiro has been writing books about this. Carn Smith wrote books about this, and they are utterly ignored. So you say, what do people do? And then the general public is totally clueless on this and misled, because the general public, surveys have been taken, 2/3 of the general public believes that scientists have created life. General public thinks that scientists have made simple complex organisms like frogs, small complex organisms like frogs in the lab. We've not even made a cell. We don't even know how to make a cell, and everybody is thrown off on this thing. And this whole idea of the primordial soup model that everybody hears about in school, which is molecules were in a pond, there were some lightning strikes, those formed the right sort of molecules that came together, that formed a cell, the cells came together and formed these organisms that came out of some pool of water. That is the typical model that is actually not just for 4th graders. That is spoken about even in advanced textbooks